Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl I Love, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. Today I am so excited to have a guest with me. Her name is Sharon Harvey Alexander, and she is a wellness educator with a background as a professional yoga therapist, a Reiki master, and a breathing coach. She is also an author of a wonderful, beautiful book, and we will get into that a little bit later, but I just want to welcome Sharon Harvey Alexander. Thank you, Sharon, for being here.
It's such a treat to be here with you today. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. You're just such an amazing person, and you're so very interesting. And I first met Sharon, oh my gosh, it was about a year ago. We were at a meeting, a SIPA meeting, a Colorado Independent Publishers Association, and just even talking to her, it made me feel kind of zen and very calm, which for someone like me is a really good thing. And so I did get to talk to her a little bit and found out that you have quite an incredible background in natural healing, and you also have a really good sense of humor, and I do give extra points for that because if someone can make me laugh, then you're going to be a friend of mine for life. So
Yay.
Yes, so that means you can't get rid of me.
Okay, that's great.
So tell me, how did you get into natural healing? How did everything start for you?
Wonderful question. We could go all the way back to the very beginning. But briefly, I'll let you know that I suffered a significant loss at around age 16.
Oh.
I actually was fortunate to grow up riding horses, had a big, furry, brown, strong, and loving horse for many, many years, which I had complete responsibility for, feeding, grooming, ordering the food, et cetera, et cetera. And I really believe that this horse offered me nothing but unconditional love.
Oh, well, horses
As
do.
only
They're
horses
wonderful. I know. I just love them. What incredible, magnificent animals. And they're so sensitive.
Yes, they really understand us. It was an opportunity to get away and escape from a somewhat contentious household and get out into nature where I really felt at one with my surroundings and at one with this horse. So around age 15, 16, somewhere in there, my parents thought that I would become interested in boys, want to start driving, would have less time for the horse, so they sold him. I grew up in a family where the motto was, children are meant to be seen and not heard. So I didn't really know to ask. And I don't think that I had the voice at this time to be able to ask for a different outcome. It broke my heart. It sent me searching in all the wrong places for many years. That being said, there was a silver lining. If I had kept that horse, I might be married to a cowboy and living in Laramie, Wyoming right now. But instead, I'm a holistic stress management educator, professional yoga therapist, and breathing coach living in beautiful Boulder, Colorado. And so I've lived a very adventurous life, but also a life that has sent me on an inner journey to seek out that experience I had with the horse during those formative years.
Right. Well, it's really interesting because out of something that was so negative and heartbreaking, I mean, look at the blessings that come out of it, but it's still hard.
Sure, there is a sense of loss and there is a tenderness in my heart that will probably always be there. I believe it makes me more compassionate for the suffering of others. And I have found a variety of holistic means to soften the layers of protection I built up around my heart over the years. So that now I am more steady and stable and kind, I suppose, both to myself and to those in my world. And I've found ways to guide others back to that place of wholeness, if you will.
That's wonderful. So then what was the first thing that you explored as far as, that holistic journey? What was the first thing that drew your attention or that called to you?
Beautiful question. And it's interesting when I think back, it's like my life happens in series of 15 years at a time. So age 15, suffer loss. About 15 years later, late 20s, or about 30 years old, I stepped onto a yoga mat.
Ah.
And I came home. It
Wow.
was transformational. Not only were the poses, the exercises, that you experience in a yoga class today, beneficial to a very active life I had been living those past 15 years. I had been a ski racer in college. I had been a mountaineer and a rock climber. I kayaked. I traveled the world.
You were right. You're a very adventurous person. You've had a very adventurous life. I did not know those things about you.
Yes, and really seeking to fill the emptiness, I think, seeking to answer that longing that was left behind by my horse. And it was all great and fun, and I excelled in the ski racing and the mountaineering, and I climbed Kilimanjaro for my 50th birthday.
Oh, jeez.
It was fantastic. But back to the yoga mat, so the poses, addressed or complemented that physical life, but it was the connection to breath. And really, a connection to breath is a way to come in and establish a relationship with the true wisdom that I believe exists at the core of each of us. And so now, after having had really a profoundly transformational experience through yoga over many years, such that I've become a certified professional yoga therapist and now an energy healer using the practice of Reiki to bring more of the energy of happiness really into, offer that as a gift to people. I have found a way not only to soothe my own heart, but to help guide others on a transformational journey back to the wholeness of who they are, bringing body, mind, heart, and soul together.
Oh, that's just beautiful.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. So for those of our listeners who really don't know much about Reiki, because, everybody's heard of yoga, and I know there's a lot of different forms of yoga, and, if you wanted to address that, you can. I would like to hear more about that, but I would like to hear more about Reiki as well, because I've experienced it, and it's one of those things that really is hard to describe to people or hard to explain, but if you want to take a shot at it, you go right ahead. I would love to have you do that.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you for the challenge. And let's bring it back to the word prana, which is a Sanskrit word defining or describing life force. So prana is what yoga teachers might refer to when they talk about breathing. Prana is the energy of life that travels in with the breath, travels in with the oxygen, travels out with the CO2 as we breathe. So Reiki is working with that same energy, and it's a Japanese tradition, and they call it ki. It's this life force, also known as chi in Tai Chi or Qigong. The Native Americans refer to this as the Great Spirit. In the Holy Trinity in the Christian religion, it would be spirit also. And so that's what I'm working with. And I have been attuned. A Reiki practitioner goes through many different levels of attunement, of being opened to receiving that life force at a higher level, if you will.
And is that as you're learning how to become a practitioner, or do you learn how to be a recipient of the work before you? Okay, so
Beautiful.
It's kind of like happening at the same time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Beautiful. One is attuned, which means they receive this treatment from a Reiki master, someone who has been it's a lineage kind of practice, so it passes down from its origin, and there are certain symbols and rituals that allow one to receive it and then to transmit it.
Okay.
And so I am trained at one of the higher levels, really the highest level as a Reiki master, so I can teach and transmit at a high level. And it's really me just opening up to that flow of energy and, if you will, channeling it or offering it to be used by the recipient in a way that's beneficial. And if they're not open to it, no harm is done. The energy just moves on. We might direct it to Mother Earth, to be used in a beneficial way.
So just to reiterate, that it's not a process that somebody takes a few weekend workshops, that this truly is an embodied way of working not only with yourself, but with other people, and it's an ongoing practice and an ongoing process.
Beautiful. It's really about opening to that greater flow of life that is around us and within us, which is sort of a segue into the book that I've written, because I believe that breath is that link between the physical and the spiritual, if you will, between the material and the energetic, if you will. And over 25 years of working in this sort of realm, I have found that breath is foundational to experiencing any of these practices and really to healing on a deep level in the body, the mind, the heart, or the soul.
And the spirit.
And the spirit.
So one of the things about the breathing and about the breath, and as you know, I was a respiratory therapist in my former life, and of course our approach to breathing was much different. But you've got the physiological end of it, and you've got what you just said, the spiritual end of it. It's like feeding your soul, your heart, your spirit, not just your body. So it's on a molecular level. There's so much going on there. So I think this would be a really good time for you to tell us just a little bit about your book. And the title of the book is Learning to Breathe, Learning to Live. The subtitle is Simple Tools to Relieve Stress and Invigorate Your Life. And it's a lovely title, and it really does say it all. But even in the subtitle, you get that feeling of, oh, there is so much more to this, right?
Yes.
So tell us, when did you decide to write the book? What brought you to that, moment to decide to do that? And what was the writing process like for you?
Beautiful. Thank you for those questions. So the book came out of something that may at some point become a bigger project or a different book. I had intended to write about my climb up Kilimanjaro, actually, and to weave in some of the practices that I teach to others and that I use as my daily self-practice, self-care. I had not written before.
Okay.
I had bought a publishing package just a few months into the process of starting this book about Kilimanjaro. And as I went along, I started to realize that maybe I need to write about something I really know about, a smaller project, set the Kilimanjaro piece aside and learn, about the whole experience of becoming an author and publishing a book.
So how was that?
And it was great. And actually, when I made that decision, it was easy.
Oh,
so the Kilimanjaro book, I spent about 3 years actually, and I have, hundreds of thousands of words, but it's not in the format that really would interest a reader, that's another story.
And do you feel like even as you were doing it and as you were writing it, did it feel like it was effortful? Did it feel like it was work, or did it feel like it was an organic, creation that was just coming effortlessly from you? I'm just curious about that.
The Kilimanjaro piece?
Yep.
It seemed like both. There were times where I struggled. I actually began the whole process on a challenge from a friend who said, it's September, let's challenge ourselves to write 15 minutes every day. Who's in? I said I'd start. I would sit down every morning and take 15 minutes to write, free form, whatever it was, knowing I wanted to put this book about Kilimanjaro together.
Okay.
And I was able to do sort of chronological recording, day 1, this happened, day 2, day 3, that kind of thing. So it came into form. September ended, I kept going into October. In November, I bought the publishing package. It was on sale, by the way. And, I kept going, and then life got in the way. But I sort of kind of stayed with it, over time. But ultimately realized that I want to use the publishing package. I just want to get a book out. And I have something to say, but I think it's more refined than this trip up Kilimanjaro. What I was going to weave in are my personal practices, because on day 2 of the climb up the mountain, I wasn't feeling so great. I started to worry. My mind started to cycle around like, what if, I'd spent all this money, I've spent all this time, I've come all this way. What if I'm not successful? What if I don't achieve my goal?
That negative self-talk that really sabotages a lot
Builds
of our
up.
accomplishments. Yeah.
Yes. So day 3, I asked if I could take a shortcut. I had done my research. I knew the porters took a shorter route. They said yes. I got to take a nap, and I touched in with some of my personal practices. I became quiet. I connected with my breath. I addressed my mindset, which was spiraling down, right? I brought myself around. I brought myself up. And every day after that, I felt better and better. We summited and spent the night on top, and I felt great.
I think that is something that is such a powerful message that you just shared with us. And I think a lot of us really need to hear that, because we all go through times when we're really, down, and then that negative spiral starts
Keeps pulling us further down.
Exactly. And it just gains more power over us and more momentum as it's starting to spiral down. So the ability to be able to turn that around with some very simple techniques is just an incredible tool to have in your tool chest. So I am so even happier to have you here today, so we can talk about this. So, it'll help encourage anybody out there who's maybe dealing with that. And okay, so maybe you're not going to be climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, but even if it's a health issue or a health scare or financial stress or anything that's going on in your life that you need to have a little bit of help with. I mean, it seems like a lot of us are pretty stressed nowadays. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I refer to it as the mountain in your life. So what is this formidable, huge object, maybe a barrier between where you are now and where you want to be, or where you can be? I knew I could summit that mountain. However, I started feeling terrible, and my mind started telling me these stories. Turns out it was jet lag, and all I needed was to rest and to connect with my practices, which I had let go over the course of the days leading up to the start of the climb, because it was very busy, and a lot of travel. But if we stay with these very simple practices, and I outline the very basic practices in my book, they transform us on a day-to-day basis, so we really can reveal, uncover our best self, and bring that forward moment by moment.
And you do an incredible job, really beautiful job with the book, and the way you do, it's very clear and very easy to follow and easy to start these practices. So we will give you even more information about where you can get the book at the end of the podcast. But if I may, I want to just kind of some of the things that really struck me when I was reading your book, and I'm a highlighter. I highlight everything. It's really crazy. So I went through your book again and just wrote them down so I could just address that with you today. And it was one of the things that you said in your book, and I'm quoting you, is fine-tuning your awareness of the breath leads to heightened awareness of energy flow. And I want you to talk about that, because one of the things that I talk about as the FemiNinja, and in a lot of my sharing secrets of the ninja, is about awareness. So there's so much, not just your awareness of your external environment, but your internal environment as well, and addressing the energy flow and the energy source that a lot of people might think is like, that's just hocus pocus. And as we know, it really isn't. So
beautiful.
If you can address that, that'd be great.
Thank you. And I appreciate you reading with such detail into the book.
Well, that's how I ride.
So as a certified professional yoga therapist, I have thousands of hours of study, practice, and implementation of the ancient wisdom of yoga. And at its core, yoga means to unite all of the parts of ourselves into one integrated and perfect whole. Yoga also tells us, the yoga philosophy coming out of India thousands of years ago, tells us that we were born good. We were born to have an abundant life. And what happens is sometimes we forget that. But we can come back to that by catching ourselves, which takes practice. And that's why, again, I've written this book, because I believe breathing is the key to bringing us back into touch with our essential self. I describe that essential self as the energy of life that flows around us and within us with the breath. But there's more. The more we turn in, and really this is talking a little bit about meditation, and there are many steps to lead one toward that meditative experience, which we could do a whole nother podcast on.
I would love that.
But just bringing our attention to our breath helps us remember ourself as whole, healthy, and capable. Remember ourselves as competent and compassionate. So actually, what if we took just a moment right now to connect with our breath, if that would be okay, so that the listeners could get an actual sense of this rather than us just talking in words.
Excellent. So they can even just join along and you can practice with us.
Great.
Okay.
Good.
Ahead.
And we'll
Go
take
for it.
only a few minutes. You
Okay.
can always take this again and make it longer as you have time. So first, please, everyone, uncross your legs and let your feet rest on the floor. And bring your attention down through your feet to the floor. And bring your attention, your awareness down into your seat. Sense into you sitting on the chair, if that's where you are. Imagine energy flowing down out of your head, down through your sit bones on the chair, down through your feet. And simply notice your breath now. Bring your attention to your breath and observe your breath move in and out through the nose if that's comfortable. Soften your belly, and if you can expand your belly gently as you inhale, that invites air to travel deeper into the lungs, and it also turns on the relaxation response in the body. When you exhale, allow the breath to travel all the way out to the end. Is it possible to let go of the breath completely, knowing that it will turn around and come in at the right time? Please take just a few more breaths this way, softening your belly to welcome the breath in, perhaps tucking the belly in to help expel the breath out from the lungs. 2 or 3 more rounds now. And then bring your attention back to this recording and first notice how you feel and perhaps contrast that with how you were feeling before. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'm here to tell you that I feel a lot more relaxed already. And for you to get me to relax that quickly really truly is, that's an art form in itself. And so when you're talking about, and we're following along with this breathing practice and how it does bring you to that place of calmness and serenity, and you do address this in your book, the parasympathetic nervous system,
Yes.
the one where you are in that state of homeostasis and
Yes.
calmness, as opposed to the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. So even if you aren't faced with a stressful situation, what happens when you just habitually hold your breath,
Right.
or shallow breathe or something? So if you can address then the opposite of what you just talked us through.
Absolutely.
What happens physiologically and emotionally
Yes.
with the holding of the breath?
Good. So first of all, the more time we spend in our heads, and who doesn't spend time in their heads planning the to-do list, looking at deadlines at work, the grocery list, the next vacation. We spend a lot of time in our heads. The more time we spend in our heads, the shorter and the shallower our breath becomes. The breath is part of the autonomic nervous system, of which parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system are components. And so there's either the rest and digest, which comes from a slower, deeper, more aware breath, or there's that stressful experience, which often leads to the fight or flight, fight, flight, or freeze, where we just become immobile and don't know what to do. Those are common responses to stress. It used to be that stress served a wild animal in escaping from becoming a meal. Either we are the meal, or we become the meal, or we're seeking a meal, and we run to either catch the prey or to escape from that. And that is where stress comes in and shunts elevates hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, shunts energy to the legs and arms so that we can run and escape or capture. But then there's a time when the animal will rest. The belly is full, they fall asleep, they're in a safe place, they can rest as long as they need to, they sleep off the effect of those stress hormones. And then they get up and go about their day again, grazing, procreating, whatever it might be, they are relaxed. The trouble is nowadays, stress is constant. You know, if you have your cell phone with you, it probably is always dinging. I keep mine off on purpose. I might miss a call, but I can call back.
That's one of my favorite topics. And when I say favorite, it's like not. It's put down the cell phone. It is sucking the life out of us.
Yes.
It is sucking our brains, our creative energy.
Yes.
And of course, the ninja in me is like, it is not safe. A distracted person is an easy target. So one more time, I will say, put away your cell phone. Okay,
Great
continues.
message. Yes. So not only is that a constant source of stimulation, if you will, which leads to stress, but so are the demands placed on our day. You know, deadlines at work, if you're running late for a meeting or to catch a plane. You know, go, 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 run, run, run. And then we feel like we have to work out, so we add the exercise in. When are we resting? When are we resting in a really efficient way to decompress, to de-escalate, if you will, the response of the stress hormones in our body? It's that escalation of hormones, the negative hormones, that leads to dis-ease.
Correct,
we
right.
may start to feel uncomfortable. Yet if we push through or we don't notice that feeling of dis-ease, something begins to speak louder, it becomes disease.
Right.
And so again, I've written the book to counteract that sort of effect our lifestyle, our modern day lifestyle has on our well-being.
And that brings me to the point that you made when we were talking about, or you were talking about the parasympathetic nervous system, and that the job, one of the many jobs of the parasympathetic state is rest and digest.
Yes.
And as soon as you said that, it just popped into my brain how many digestive issues people have
Absolutely.
these days. And, you know, there's a barrage of different diseases or dysfunction and problems of the digestive system that we didn't really have. You know, when I was a child, I think you're just a little bit younger than me, but when I was growing up, you never heard of stuff like this. And it seems like every time I turn around, I hear of a new disease state that is just discovered. And there's one even that I had, I really have not told my readers or my listeners about yet, but I'm going to address it at some time. But it's called interstitial cystitis. And oh, by the way, I really didn't have it. It was a muscular imbalance. But it's one of those things when, you know, your body gets just even a little bit out of whack, it can affect so many different systems.
Yes.
And then right away, you know, we go and get it checked out and well, we don't know what's wrong, take this pill, blah, blah, blah. When actually some of the best remedies and medicine we have has been practiced for thousands and thousands of years.
Right.
And one of them is breathing.
Yes, breathing, Reiki, and yoga. Yoga really was all about how do we sit in stillness and turn inside so that we can touch in with the true teacher, that true guide, which might be sensed as angst or malaise or some kind of discomfort a little bit off normal. When we notice that, can we attend to it right away without letting it grow such that it becomes a disease that then we take these medications, which doctors really only know if about 50% of the time that something will help.
Right,
So,
right. But they have to do something, and
Yes.
you know, especially they've got a patient with a problem, they want to fix it. But a
If
lot
we
of
can
times,
catch it early,
and
or
a
if
lot
we
of
can
times
learn to breathe.
we can fix it ourselves through simple practices like the breathing. And you know, I had that horrible back injury. I don't know if you knew, I was a chronic pain patient for 2.5 years when I was in my mid-30s. It
Wow.
was just a nightmare. Yeah, and I was a respiratory therapist at the time. I wasn't a PT, but you know, it was just such a nightmare. And eventually, I finally just had to figure it out for myself when I hit rock bottom.
Yes.
And it was just, I was getting worse and worse and worse and worse, taking more and more meds and, you know, going to the physical therapists, the doctors and, you know, chiropractors. And it was getting worse. So I finally just said, I'm done with this.
Yes.
And I had to figure it out for myself. So not knowing anything, I just intuitively went back to the practice of learning how to move the way we did when we were babies and infants and children through natural movement, not
Right.
having somebody else tell me how to move
Right.
or tell me how to breathe. That's another thing. I'd take classes, and even in martial arts and stuff, some of my classmates would say, what's the right way to breathe? And it's like, well, in and out is probably just a good way to start. But having that practice of awareness of yourself,
Right.
your internal environment is so important, not, it's just for your health and longevity and your vitality. And when you have that much knowledge, that self-knowledge, that helps you with your personal power. And that is very empowering, I think.
Yes, and anyone wondering how to cultivate that awareness, it starts by paying attention to the breath. I refer to it as befriending the breath. It really takes just moments a day. It really is just observing how you're breathing, observing, imagining that you could tap into the sensations of breath as it enters your nostrils, as it exits your nostrils, becoming aware of how your body responds to the breath flowing in, the breath flowing out. That, in my book, is what I call an easy breath. It should be effortless, easy. It's the key, it's the beginning, and then the belly breathing is the foundation for establishing this connection with the parasympathetic nervous system, this ability to rest at a deep level so that we sleep better, so that we digest better, so that our relationships improve and we can remain more focused at work rather than distracted, as you talked about with the cell phone.
So it impacts your entire quality of life.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to bring up, there are a couple of other quotes and little just word blurbs that I picked up in the book when I was reviewing this. And one of the things that you said, and this really actually goes hand in hand with the Feldenkrais work too that I've done, or my Feldenkrais practice, is to approach this in a light and playful manner. And I really want you to emphasize that, because some people might be thinking, oh, great, this is something I can do. One more thing I have to do, and I want to really be good at it, so I'm going to work really hard, and oh my gosh, what if I do it wrong? And so why don't you address that?
Yes, you're so funny. And
I am known for my humor.
It's absolutely very important to do less when we're cultivating this relationship with the breath, when we are seeking to bring ourself back to that state of balance, or as Cheryl mentioned, homeostasis. By doing less, I believe we actually end up doing more. I tell all my students that is to slow down and to make less effort. So as I mentioned, it becomes an effortless effort. And part of being a yoga therapist is I'm steeped in the medical arm of yoga known as Ayurveda.
Okay.
In Ayurveda, we look at one's wellness personality based on the elements that are found in nature. And so that tendency to want to do it right, to worry about getting it wrong, to put in extra effort, to make sure they really get this going correctly. That is the pitta dosha. That is the tendency of the person who is a little bit fiery, a little bit driven. The itises in disease are a pitta imbalance, too much fire, too much intensity.
I love that. And I love that word. That sounds so good.
Yes,
That's
and that's a whole nother discussion as well. But I love sharing that information with people. I do workshops on the Ayurveda doshas, one's unique wellness personality. And to circle it back, bottom line is do less, soften the body, soften your whole approach, and simply welcome the breath. Take a few moments, maybe carve out some quiet time in the bathroom. That's what I had to do on the mountain, Kilimanjaro, in the bathroom tent. Only place I had time to myself, but I did it. A few minutes of connecting with the breath, softening the effort, and then setting your intention. What is it that you would like? What is your vision for where you're going with this? What does that look like? How will you feel when you are healthy and calm and your body is functioning at its best? The breath can lead you there. the connection with the
So
breath.
are you advocating then the process of imagination, visualization, and everything with it? And there's just a couple of things with the going into that sense of approaching this with ease and playfulness. And the other thing that you said, and I think you may have even said it in our conversation already, is that you're being, not doing.
Beautiful.
Because we want to do all the time, and it's just let go of the do.
Yes.
And the other thing that I thought was so cute in the book that you says, give the mind a job.
Yes.
So what is the job that you're giving to your mind, or our minds as we're doing that?
Yes. So our mind, there are in yoga philosophy, there are different layers or levels of mind. And so the mind that pays attention, right, that helps, that crafts the to-do list, or that reminds you, oh, you've got this, oh, you've got that, oh, what about this? You know, the busyness of the mind. In yoga, the term is monkey mind, the chatter that is hard to turn off, right? The chatter that we feed by paying attention to. So if we can acknowledge the monkey mind, if we can acknowledge when thoughts enter and choose not to maybe follow them, give them permission to float on like clouds crossing over the sun, we bring our attention back to the breath. The breath becomes the focal point. We notice the busyness of the mind, but with practice, this does take time. I'll be the first to tell you. With practice, we can remain focused on the breath while simultaneously noticing thoughts and not being distracted by them. So that helps us to come to that centered place, which I have touched into within me, that still point, that source of well-being that exists within each one of us. That is what we're tapping into when we cultivate this beneficial relationship with the breath in a playful, gentle, non-competitive manner, if you will.
And I love that word, the still point. And I've heard it a few times in other practices that I've experienced, or classes that I've taken. And that is, it's almost like the sweet spot.
Absolutely.
Or that moment of absolute balance and harmony.
Yes.
And of course, you're not going to stay there, because we are dynamic systems, and there's always something going on. But once you experience that just once, you know you can always come back to it, and it does exist deep inside of you. So it's just another way. To me, it's a journey that just never stops. And I think it's just so wonderful that we have these tools available to us to improve the quality of our lives, and so we can be our best self and healthy and vibrant during the entire course of our lifetime. So I'm just so happy that you're here with me today. It's just been such a treat. So tell people how they can get your book.
Sure. So my book is available on my website and in other places too. And my website address is www.mountainwisdomholistichealth.com. I spell holistic with a W, so it's WHOLISTIC, mountainwisdomholistichealth.com. That is also the name of my business. And I work with people in person in one-to-one visits, or I can also work virtually by Skype or FaceTime. So I connect with people all over the world. The book is also available in local bookstores in Colorado, the Boulder Bookstore, the Tattered Cover, and a variety of smaller shops. If anyone's in Longmont, it's at the Cheese Importers.
Oh, nice.
And it's at Refill Revolution here in Boulder. So it's out there, but the easiest way is to just go on my website and order it there.
Okay. And then as far as you do work with people individually, one-on-one, and do you teach classes, workshops, seminars,
Yes.
that type of thing, consulting, anything like that? So people can go to your website and they can contact you through the website?
Absolutely. Contact page is a great way to reach out with any questions, either while you're reading the book or if you'd like more information. And I do travel to offer workshops from the book. I also offer workshops on different topics. One of my favorite is called Wellness Starts Within.
Great title.
And yes, and I can craft workshops, and I offer retreats, and I also have weekly classes that I offer in a private studio in Boulder. So there are many ways to connect with me and connect with my work, and I would be happy to support you in any way that I can.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Sharon, it has been an absolute delight having you here with me today, and I have just enjoyed this conversation, and I do feel very calm right now. So thank you for that. And everybody, thank you so much for listening. I sincerely appreciate it. And remember, taking care of your health, taking care of yourself is part of the way of the FemiNinja. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.